every case Abraham Lincoln had ever been involved with. There were more than 6,000 of them.
Wow.
But when you review those cases, you come to this startling point. If Abraham Lincoln were alive today, he would be one of those lawyers you see advertising on television. And the commercial would probably start with these words. Have you been injured in an accident? 4,000 of the 6,000 cases in which Lincoln entered as an attorney were simple debt collection cases. Someone had been wronged by somebody else and he filed suit to get the money. Oftentimes it was as simple as one farmer would hire another one to bring him a load of rocks to build a foundation for his farm. Then he wouldn't pay for the rocks. So the guy who dug the rocks out of the creek bed would hire Mr. Lincoln, they'd file a lawsuit, they'd go before a judge, he would partition the land, sell it off, and thus Mr. Lincoln was pretty darn prosperous. He raised from what he determined and described himself as to be the lowest levels of abject poverty to being a very middle upper class citizen in Springfield. If you've ever been to his house, it's a pretty nice house, even by today's standards. It's the only home Abraham Lincoln ever owned, by the way. He did very well with that kind of law. He fancied himself, in fact, as a bit of a corporate lawyer. He tried to specialize. As he saw the economy developing more and more, he wanted to get involved with business law because he was fascinated by it. He studied maritime law, which would seem kind of strange for a guy out in the middle of the Illinois prairie. One of the most famous cases he was involved with is known as the F.E. Afton case. And that was the name of a steamboat. You see, at that time, in the early 1840s, there was this great debate as to which was going to be the great force that opened up the West. Was it going to be the railroads, or was it going to be the steamship lines? Because steamboats were running up and down the Mississippi and the St. Charles River. And as luck would have it, one night, the F.E. Afton ran into a railroad bridge, caught on fire, and burned both of them down. The railroad hired Abraham Lincoln to be its counsel, to sue the owners of the F.E. Afton to get their bridge rebuilt. The case went on for more than 8 years and was never resolved. Lincoln was paid a retainer for 8 years by the railroad and never got anything issued by the court. You have to wonder how the railroad used Mr. Lincoln's legal skills. They had to be rather upset. There was another case that Lincoln got involved with, and it was the McCormick Reaper case. Some of you will recognize that name, McCormick Reaper. It ultimately became McCormick Farm Implements. It was based in Chicago. And they had a patent infringement case, and they were putting a team of lawyers together across the Midwest where their products were being sold. And they formed this team of lawyers with the head lawyer in Cincinnati, and they told Lincoln from Springfield, if you want to be on this case, go down there, report in, sign in, we'll put you on the team. He traveled to Cincinnati by train, had a 15-minute interview with the lead lawyer, who then fired him on the spot. Said he was a second-rate lawyer from a second-rate town, Springfield, Illinois. The lawyer who fired him, his name was Edwin Stanton. Some of you know that name. Edwin Stanton ultimately was the person who said at Lincoln's bedside when he died, now he belongs to the ages. Edwin Stanton, though he fired Abraham Lincoln ultimately hired him to be Secretary of War. And Stanton did a brilliant job in keeping the military going and became one of the biggest admirers of Abraham Lincoln. So his track record as a lawyer was kind of mixed. But he also, as I said, he always had a thought for law. And every now and then, it would come across brilliantly. If you've ever worked with a really good lawyer, you know that they can take the facts of a case, take it apart, turn it around, look at it, and they see things differently than people who've never been trained in the law. Lincoln could do that. And I think the best evidence of that was when he was president. After the elections of 1862, the Republicans had been soundly defeated, and Lincoln lost a lot of the support he had in Washington, and he needed more friends in Congress. He needed people who would be voting consistently with him. If you're president of the United States and you need more friends in Congress, what do? How do you find more friends in Congress? This is where you can participate. How do you find more friends in Congress?
Reach across the aisle.
You reach across the aisle, you can do that.
Get them elected.
Get them elected, you can do that. You got to wait 2 years to do it. Sometimes people say, well, you make a deal. Yeah, they do that. That's not how Lincoln did it. Lincoln created more states. How do you get more congressmen? You get more states. When the Civil War started, there wasn't a West Virginia. Lincoln knew there were some people friendly in that part of Virginia, so he basically put together a sham legislature to represent Virginia because the people in Richmond weren't about to give West Virginia up. And he got them to be recognized and got them to vote to give that part of the United States. So West Virginia, Nevada, and my brain just went blank. One other state. Nebraska, I think. Anyhow, there were 3 states that came in during that period. And they all came in. I mean, Nevada during the American Civil War. Why Nevada? Because he needed 2 senators and a representative. It was Nebraska, by the way. That's how Lincoln thought. He could see things differently. If Lincoln were here today, though, I think the other way he would want to be remembered is as a person of great faith, because he was. And even in this is why Lincoln is so fascinating. In his first campaign for the United States Congress, in fact his only campaign for the House of Representatives in 1846, he was attacked on one issue, and he was attacked and attacked and attacked. And the issue that was used against him was simply this. Abraham Lincoln has never been a member of a church. And in 1846, a person who was seen as an honorable gentleman or lady was certainly a member of a church. Well, Abraham Lincoln was getting attacked and attacked and attacked by that, to the point that he finally bought newspaper advertisements in every newspaper in that congressional district, and it said this, and if this doesn't sound like lawyerly language, you tell me what does. It said, and I quote, that I have never been a member of a church is true. However, I do not think that I could ever vote for an open scoffer of religion for a contested public office. I do not think I could vote for an open. I mean, that didn't say a whole lot. Lincoln ultimately was elected in 1846. And yet, with that kind of murky religious reference, if you think of the great words of Lincoln, almost all of them have biblical references and references of his faith, because those came after 1850. We don't know what happened in 1850, but it seems Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln had a religious conversion at about that time. And it's probably because they lost the son right then to typhoid. It was a very religious era that up until that point, neither of them seemed to be very actively involved in. But from that point on, almost every famous speech that we think of today and associate with Abraham Lincoln makes some reference to his belief in God and God's view of this country. It is an amazing transformation. There are countless references. One of my favorite quotes of Lincoln is from his second address to Congress, in which he said, "The fiery trials through which we pass." And that phrase, "the fiery trials through which we pass," comes from the book of Chronicles. There are references that Lincoln made in the first inaugural address when he spoke of the better angels of our nature. You know, we would avoid the war if both sides looked at the better angels of our nature.